say we're super lucky for our final session to be joined by two great CEOs. So Mehta from Gainsight and Tzuo from Zuora. Come on out, guys. All right. Welcome, sir.
Great.
All right, Tien. All right, grab a seat. So give us a quick blurb in case there's anyone out here who's never heard of Zuora or Gainsight. Tell us what your companies do.
Sure. We are a SaaS company, surprise, surprise. We do subscription billing. So if you're a technology company moving to the cloud, if you're a media company moving to subscription movies, subscription news, if you're a technology company doing IoT and launching services with your products, we help you everything from commerce to billing to finance and help you grow your subscription business.
Great, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, I run a company called Gainsight, and we try to help companies that have implemented subscription business models do a better job retaining their existing customers. So kind of getting more proactive about not just waiting for them to call in, figure out which customers need help proactively. A lot of people call that customer success. And so our software helps people identify which customers to spend time with, and they help them manage them through that process.
That's great. And so for both of you, when you think about your teams and the ROI of investing in customers, what types of services or activities fall under that umbrella of investing in customers?
Gosh, I mean, so there's two ways to look at that. You can certainly take a more narrow view and say, it's customer support, it's training, it's professional services, right? It's an ongoing CSM. I would say the best thing to do, though, is the thing about these subscription-based businesses is, the mindset is not, you're not selling a product, right? You're not trying to ship a product. And if you look at the traditional world where the product is sold through a distribution channel, for example, a retail channel, you don't even necessarily know who the customer is. That script is really flipped, and companies are saying now, no, with today's technology, I need to know every single of my customers. I need to anchor them on some sort of subscriber ID. And my whole business then is wrapped around the customer, right? And so when you look at it that way, everything you do has to eventually lead really back to the customer, right? It's the only way to think today.
That's great.
Yeah, we do this conference, actually just came off it last week, called Pulse, all about this sort of topic. And one of the things actually came up, which I really find interesting, is people don't fairly account for this stuff, right? Like one of the questions we got was, if you invest in customers and your existing customers, it's a cost center. Why not just invest in sales and marketing, which drives revenue? And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Investing in your customers drives revenue just like investing in sales and marketing does. So I would argue the whole premise of the question is actually wrong, and that people treat customers somehow different from every other part of their business. And actually, I think the ROI is the highest from investing in your customers. And the way I look at it is really breaking down into three kinds of investments. Number one, your money. So how do you decide how much of your budget goes into your customers? And it shows up in things like ratios of like cases per agent or accounts per account manager, those types of things. Number two, how much of your time goes into your customers? And I actually think that shows up in the calendar of the company. Mm-hmm. Do you talk about your customers every week in your exec meeting? Or do you talk about your pipeline? Like how much of your time in your exec meeting do you talk about your sales pipeline? And how much of your time do you talk about customers? If you're a CEO, how many customers do you meet a week and how many prospects do you meet a week? Then the third thing is culture. So what things do you do to celebrate your customers? So most likely when you close a deal, champagne is popping, gongs are ringing, somebody's going to Hawaii. What happens when a customer has a happy moment? Is there celebration? So those three things, I think: time, money, and culture.
I love especially the aspect of celebrating, being from New Orleans, it's in the blood. What are great things that you do to celebrate those moments?
Yeah, so we look at it in terms of how do you define what a customer objective is for your company, right? What are you actually doing? So for us, we succeed when companies are able to launch a new way of pricing and packaging, right? Because at the core of it, their frustration with their systems, they can't do that fast, right? And so we can get their idea to implementation in hours versus weeks or months, right? That's big. We look at how long does it take to get out an invoice, and how fast can you collect the money, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for. Can you nurture your customer relationships, and can you drive further upsells? And so, or even all the way down to how fast can you close your books, right? What happens with these subscription business models is the finances are really complex. Mm-hmm. And so companies are taking 3, 4, 5, even 6 weeks to close their books. And so if we can move the dial in any one of these metrics for our customers, that's what we really celebrate. How do we celebrate some actionable thing that we've done for our customers?
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think one other thing to add to that is thinking about what you do when the other parts of the business are celebrating. So one of the things that's really profound is when you get a new customer, what's the message you send as a CEO or executive, right? So I think a lot of CEOs naturally, you get a new customer, you're like, yay, that's awesome, new customer, pop the champagne, ring the gong, etc. What I try to do is do all those things, but then immediately every single time say, the journey just started for the customer, right? Like we feel like the journey is ended. We're celebrating. They're not celebrating. They just like echo-signed or docu-signed their contract. It's not like the highlight of their customer experience, right? They've just started. So a little bit of like what you celebrate in other parts of the business sends the right signal about what you celebrate in your customers. And then I think bringing that same marketing flair into your customers as you have in your prospects, all the little things, like for example, if you have a B2B relationship, your customer gets a new job or promotion, like send them a gift, like we do, like sing telegrams and gift baskets and all kinds of crazy stuff. And those human connections, I think, matter a lot, especially if you have a high value relationship.
Absolutely.
But you're singing for your customers directly.
Yeah, I sing to our customers directly.
Up?
That's not a gift. That's actually like a curse.
Nick is the telegram, so look out.
There's a video. I'm trying to delete it.
That's great. And so we were talking before, both of your companies were at the place where TalkDesk is now not too long ago. So we were saying, Pulse started 4 years ago, Subscribe about 5-6 years ago. As you look at the evolution that your companies have had, how has your vision of investing in your companies or in your customers changed over time?
Well, companies go through different sort of points of scale, right? And these are arbitrary markers for these SaaS subscription companies. You can look at the ones and threes, 1 million, 3 million, 10 million, 30 million. And when each of these phases, right, you have to focus on different things. And so in the beginning, when you're trying to get the product market fit, you're just at that point trying to understand what is the value that I create for customers and how do I do that on a repeated basis, right? And at that point, everybody's in on this, right? The product the team is in on it, the engineering team, the sales team, the customer success team. Hopefully you're a small organization, that information is flowing. And rather than going through all the phases, once you're a $25, $30 million company, right? You start to really look at the fundamental economics of this, right? So I can't scale to $100 million. We're about 600 people now. Without getting the economics of customer success. And you have to look at this on a unit economic basis, right? How much does it cost for me to acquire a customer? And is that customer going to be margin positive over time, right? And what's the payback period? And also on a global scale, right? If I look at my income statement, I look at how much I'm spending in sales, customer success, customer support, does that add up to a business that investors like public investors are going to say this is a business model that I want to invest in?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and one thing to add, so it's interesting because I think naturally most things there's always sort of like two equally opposite but equally valid points of view. So on one side you have like the natural instinct, which is as you get bigger, you got to question whether things scale or not. Everything Tien said's right. I'd argue though for a lot of companies they use scale as an excuse, right? So it's like sorry, won't scale. And if one of the best blog posts ever written is Paul Graham, do things that don't scale. It's about the idea that a whole startup is the principle is do things that aren't going to scale and keep doing it as long as you can. And so I'd argue like find ways that you can delight your customers that don't scale. So as an example, we did this conference last week and 3,200 attendees, and I was like, you know what would be really surprising to people? I emailed them all in, kind of one mass email and said, write back to me and say how we can make this a magical experience for you. So obviously like 3,000 of those people are like, there's no way he's going to read this email when I write back. But about 300 people wrote back and then said, I'm really looking to meet this kind of person or whatever. And then we wrote back to all those people. I wrote back actually myself and said, okay, we're going to go take care of that. We're going to get you connected, et cetera. One person was a high value client for us said, where can I get a Steph Curry jersey inside Oakland? And she was flying in from like Iowa or something for my nephew. And so we had a Steph Curry jersey waiting for her in her hotel room. And then the humorous side story is the person that I had on my team go get the jersey didn't know who Steph Curry was and went into a store and said, can you make a custom jersey with the name Steph Curry on the back? It's one of our customers' children's names. So, but I just think like it's like one of those stories where 3,200 people seems like you couldn't possibly email them all, ask for feedback, respond back as a CEO. You can. I think every single company underestimates how much they can do that quote unquote doesn't scale.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point to keep pushing to that higher bar. Along those lines, though, have you ever done anything that really was just a little above and beyond, just invested to the point where you're like, we have diminishing returns now, I've gone too far, this was silly?
Well, so I mean, absolutely. I mean, you go through these periods of time, and it feels like every SaaS company has a moment where they look at, their customer success, they look at their churn, and they're like, it's that oh crap moment, right? And so it could be, one quarter where your churn is outstripping your growth, right? And I was at Salesforce before, and early on we had one of those quarters. And at that point, look, you got to throw out the playbook, right? You got to say, look, we have a core issue, and we are not going to build a sustainable business unless we throw ourselves at this problem and really break through on it, right? And at that point, you go all in, right? You go all in. Everybody's got to call a customer. You have the discussions. What we did when we were hitting one of these inflection points is we decided, we're getting a little bit distant from what we actually do for customers. When you're 20, 30 people, everybody knows what we do for customers. All of a sudden, one day you find out you're 200 people. And not everybody, understands what we do for customers, right? Because it was intuitive before. You haven't put all the training infrastructure in place. So we took everybody out to a 2-day offsite, right? We took them to this place, Costa Noa, down the ocean, down.
This is the glamping trip, right?
And we went glamping, right? It's glamour camping, right? Where everybody was intense, and so we'll make sure we invite you next time. And it was 2 days. There's a lot of debauchery one evening. People were in like the wrong tents. But we spent 2 days really just talking about what we did for customers, right? We broke up into teams, we broke them into workshops, like we presented to each other, and we came out of it really, really transformational. So there are moments in time where, look, you just got to go all in, right? And those are sort of the inflection points and pivot points in the company.
That's really neat to hear about. Actually, earlier today, someone was talking about combining the user experience teams and designers, taking that group and combining them with the customer-facing teams. And I think when you actually get across the company, you put everyone in one room and you say, okay, what are we doing for customers? Whether it's in general or to make their experience better, that's when you get the great ideas because you're putting the right people in the room and facilitating the right conversation. So that makes a ton of sense.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So not over-investing, but actually being smart and saying, okay, I've got a budget. Have you ever delivered a really cool customer experience, not when you've taken everyone, I guess, internally glamping, but said, I'm not going to be able to spend a ton of money, but I want to do something impactful, something memorable for this customer. You come up with anything like that?
Yeah, we had a customer, it's one of our early customers. It was a telecom company called ExploreNet. And, they took an early bet on us when, our product probably didn't quite scale to the level they wanted. We went all in, got it working. And this is 4 or 5 years later, and they've been with us through this journey. They've done a ton of customer references for us. And so we decided to do something crazy, which is we're going to create a card and try to get everybody in the company to sign the card. And so this was this gigantic Salesforce card, and we had one of our customer success folks take the card. And, at this point, we've got offices around the world. We probably have, 10, 15 offices. And so they went, her and her husband decided, hey, can I tag along? They did an around-the-world journey with this card, and we all signed it, and then we shot a video of, the London office, the Paris office, the Beijing office, the Sydney office, the Atlanta office, the Boston office, right, saying, thank you, Kathy. And then we took all this and created this video. And then we invited her over to our user conference and surprised her with it. And so she was in tears. And so it was pretty emotional. But here was just a customer that was really part of the family, and we thought really helped build our company, not just in her faith in us, but just all the work that she did, all the product feedback and the references and everything. And so we decided to kind of go a little bit above and beyond and do that.
That's really neat. That's really neat. Yeah, we've got a few partners out in the audience today that I feel like are giving Talkdesk that same gift. Our early customers who just push us to be better and better.
Yeah.
And
so now you could all expect now this gigantic card with every employee.
That's
right?
cool. How about y'all at Gainsight, Nick? What have y'all done?
Well, we make a lot of videos, so similar thing. I think one customer, I won't say the name of the customer, but we were early customer for us. And we took a really bad 90s song, What If God Was One of Us by Joan Osborne?
Sounds right.
Is that right? And what if this customer was one of us, and we made a music video about them and took footage from their website and stuff like that. And it was super cheesy, but really cute too, and it was fun. It just allowed us to connect with them. So I do think that these things don't cost any money. Actually, they really don't. I don't know, it costs like $50 to make, to get some B-roll footage and all that and insert it in.
Yeah.
But it takes time, and people appreciate the time. So I think it's a lot like, you get those, if you have kids, you get the Father's Day gifts or the Mother's Day gifts. And the best ones are the really, really crappy ones, but they spend so much time on it in art class, right? And it's just the time that they put in. It really does mean a lot. I think your customers appreciate that too.
Oh, absolutely. I'm realizing now that our videographers are finished prepping for Opentalk, we should probably put them to good work and do some things like this.
Totally.
Tell us a story when you had a hypothesis and said, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to invest in customers in this way, and it's going to be amazing. And you started testing it and realized, we need to pivot, this is not working, this is not going over like we wanted it to.
Yeah, so we went through this phase where, what do we actually do for customers, right? And we have a whole language around this now. But we went through this whole self-identity value. Who are we, right? And so, what is our vision? What is our mission? It sounds kind of strange that it took 2 days of conversation to get to this, but it always like that. So our mission is to make customers successful in the subscription economy. And then that raises the next question, well, how do we make them successful? So we took 6 months. At first it was like, well, we need to help them grow and flow. And it took a little while to crystallize it down to a simple framework, right? And for us, we boiled it down to 9 keys, 9 things that we do for our customers. But the first couple iterations of it, it was too complicated. People couldn't get their heads around it, right? So this thing takes work. So it takes iteration to really get to the point where it starts to click.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that value kind of definition, which I've seen Zuora do, is just amazing, really critical. And then one other tool that's kind of complementary to that is really understanding your customer segmentation in a lot of detail. I think one of the problems with customer service or customer success or whatever is it starts out with an almost unsustainable value proposition. We're going to make everyone as happy as possible and do everything possible to make everyone as happy as possible, and happiness is not well defined, right? So that's like an equation that's unsolvable. And I think part of solving it is what's the outcome the customer wants, which is what Tien talked about. And then part of solving it is really understanding that segmentation well, that pyramid of your clients, and whatever way you think about that, and what different kinds of clients needs. Because some clients don't want you calling them all the time, reaching out, having meetings, visiting them, right? Some clients just want like an awesome online experience, right? And some clients really want a high-touch experience, and some clients aren't worth a high-touch experience, or you're not worth it to them, right? And really getting clear, I think equally applied effort to every customer is almost surely the wrong strategy. Almost anything else is a better strategy than doing the same thing for everyone, right? So segmenting your approach in a way, some smart way, really makes a lot of sense. It's something I think most companies don't do enough of.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And I mean, when you talk about those segments and buckets, is it self-selecting for the customers where you offer the same suite of options and customers sort of opt into what makes sense for them? Or do you say, hey, based on what we know about your industry or your size, we're going to give you this experience?
Well, we've thought a lot about that because segmentation starts out seeming like an easy problem. Oh, you just do it based on employees if it's a business, or based on like demographics if it's the consumer. I think it is a mix of both things. It's the externally visible kind of ex ante, like before you see the situation, you can tell they're in this segment based on zip code or employees or whatever. And then it's their behavior, their choice of a package that they bought, their experience. And I think you have to blend those two together to give the right curated experience for that customer, right? Because I do think that somebody could go to Four Seasons and be super wealthy and have a totally different expectation and need than somebody else who goes to Four Seasons and doesn't want to talk to the staff at all, right? Like two people that look exactly the same to the Four Seasons, but Four Seasons gets good, I'm just picking them as one great brand, at figuring out what those two people want. So I think a combination of the demographics and firmographics and the behavior is really, really important.
Gosh, how do you get smart around that, though? I mean, that's not an easy thing to figure out. What types of data do you start to look at and pull from to find those answers?
Well, I think it's just like religiously analyzing your business constantly. Yeah. And like, for example, averages are useless. Like the average NPS for your business is useless. The average revenue retention for your business is useless. The average like usage of your product or service is not useful. What's useful is in each of those micro segments, how are you doing all those measures? So build a report card that kind of lays out what you care about by segment and really look at it, and then tweak those. Say, what if we move the segments? What if we change the metrics? And then constantly be trying to scrutinize it. But I think without that, you just are solving for something that's, I think, almost unsolvable.
I mean, if you think about customers today, right, then you think about yourself as a customer. You think about the things that you enjoyed using, right? Whether it's Uber or Spotify, right? Or Salesforce.com as a SaaS application, right? Or Box, whatever it happens to be. Our expectations of the things that we use are all changing now, and we expect we expect the thing to know a lot about us, right? We expect the thing to know a lot about us, adapt to our behavior, understand our preferences, right? This whole idea that I can't customize Salesforce based on my company's workflow, right? Why is it that I walk into Uber, it should be my Spotify station playing, right? And so this idea that you can truly have, let every one of your customers have a one-on-one unique experience that's tailored to that person or that company is possible today, right? But you've got to craft, the technology to enable it. And so the technology itself should be picking up all the preferences and all the behaviors and how much money they paid and what their demographics are, right? And it should all be built into the service itself. When you can accomplish that, right, that's when you truly have something that's differentiated and unique, for that customer. And then that's really when you nail that relationship.
This is the second time in 2 days that the Uber-Spotify partnership has come up. And I know, some of you might say, oh, it's easier B2C. But I would encourage all of us, myself included, to really think about how to create something that's that impactful. Because this really seems to have affected a lot of people and impressed a lot of people. Yeah. Where you say, I can get into a ride, which, does it affect retention or loyalty? Probably not. You're probably going to take Uber anyway, but it just makes it nice. And it doesn't take a ton of work on the company's part. So, what are those little things that we can do that just make it more fun for our customers? I think that's really important.
Totally.
So what about competitors? How much do you know about what your competitors do and the service they provide to their customers, and how do you differentiate from them?
Well, when you look at it from a customer standpoint, right? So the flip is always from product to customers, right? The product is, okay, here's my product, that's their product, and my product has these features that are better, their product has these features, right? And you flip for customers, you say, okay, it really becomes a customer segmentation exercise, right? So you just pick at the Uber thing. Millennials like Lyfts and professionals like Uber, right? And so you're looking at a market map of what my market looks like, and which are the segments of this market that really play to my strengths and where I'm going to go deep, right? And what are the other segments that maybe the competitors are, and what are the segments that we overlap? That's typically what starts to happen, right? With when you have a customer-centric mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one other thing to add, I'm sure many of you read Jeff Bezos' Amazon shareholder letter. It's like the thing that he puts out every year. And one of the best quotes is, we're customer focused, not competitor focused, right? And I think that you can answer your question in a slightly different way from saying, what do customers look at, and this ties to what Tien just said, to differentiate and make decisions on what they buy. And one thing I think customers are much more savvy to, especially in B2B, but also in B2C, technology is a total commodity, right? Like, it's actually just like there's just a ton of technology out there for every single thing you want, from music to software to whatever else, right? And so I think customers are becoming more savvy that the experience, the outcome, the way that the vendor delivers that experience is just as important in getting the outcome as the technology. There's a few technologies out there that only one company can do, and those businesses are amazing, right? Google, pretty awesome. But most businesses, most industries, there's tons of different ways to solve that problem, right? Mm-hmm. And what differentiates is that vendor's approach to delivering that outcome. How do they actually onboard you, get you using the stuff? What's the training like? How hard is the learning curve? How do they make sure you're using it on a regular basis? So I think it's a huge differentiator, and I see more and more companies talking about their customer experience in the sales process.
I like that also, that parallel between being customer focused versus competitor focused.
Totally.
I think if you stay competitor focused, the bar stays a lot lower.
Absolutely.
And you say, we just want to deliver the best experience for our customers. You're pushing yourself time and time again.
We'll sometimes replace the word customer, which feels very traditional, one-sided, right? I'm trying to sell the customer a product, to the word relationship, right? Which evokes something that's more bidirectional, and it's more of a connection, right? And you're trying to maintain that connection over time, right? And when you look at it that way, then you say, okay, look, how many relationships can I have with my offering, right? Am I taking advantage of my knowledge of that relationship, which my competitors don't have to strengthen the relationship to build sort of a cycle into it, and how valuable is the other side of it, receiving that relationship, and is the value equation, fair, right? And so the value that I'm receiving as a vendor in that equation, right, the monies or whatnot, right, equates to the value that I'm creating for that customer, right? But really focusing on the relationship and asking about that relationship is important. I mean, as an example, you know, you look at what Netflix did a few years ago where, hey, I'm going to arbitrarily raise my prices and I'm going to split my service, right? It's a very product-centric view, right? I sold you this product and now I'm going to have another product and, you know, I'm going to design the product and dump it into the marketplace. But what they forgot is they have a relationship with every one of their customers, and when the other side sees you unilaterally doing things that they didn't participate in that conversation, right? They're like, okay, this trust has been violated, and I think, you know, maybe I'll reevaluate, you know, my relationship options, right, at that point. But really thinking about it as a relationship is helpful.
I love that because I think one thing I'd encourage all of us to drop as language matters a lot, right? You send a signal when you use language. One term that all of us use, including I've used it, is customer acquisition. And it's like, and customer acquisition costs, acquiring customers. And that's so antithetical to this new concept because it is a relationship. You're not acquiring that customer. They don't work for you. You don't own them, right? But we talk about it that way, and that just sends a message. It's the customer's not committed to you. It's much more like Tinder than it is like eHarmony. That's not like a long-term relationship they've signed up forever. This is like they're going to try you out, see how it's going, and every day or every month, every year, you're up for reevaluation, whether it's B2B or B2C. And so I just think some of the terminology we use lulls us into a false sense of connection with our customers that isn't really there. They want you to re-earn their business every day.
Yeah, I like that. It's not like, we got them. They're ours
exactly.
forever.
They're done. Exactly. Celebrate.
Yeah. So what's a better word? What's a better word than acquisition?
That's what I'm looking for. I don't know.
Yeah. Any ideas?
I haven't actually used Tinder, so I don't know what the button's called or something. But
swipe right.
Swipe right, something.
Yeah, I don't know how that we might have to come up with something
Probably
else.
That goes off script.
Our customers have swiped right.
Exactly.
Well, we'll figure it out. All right, I did not get to use the blue box in my last session, and I'm having a lot of regret around that. So I want to open up this audience, give them the opportunity to ask some questions. So what do you have for Tien and Nick, who's got some questions around the ROI of investing in your customers? They spoke a lot about segmentation, getting smart around segmentation, and how are you going to find the right way to invest in your customers until you get really smart about who your customers are, and then you can dive into who your customers want. Anything you wanting them to dive deeper into? Yes, we've got a taker. All right. I'm going to go overhand.
Yeah, let's see.
This could be dangerous, but let's go for it.
Nicely done.
All right. I'm clapping for myself.
Well throw.
So let's talk about segmentation. So if I'm listening to you properly, it started from a revenue standpoint as far as segmenting and addressing the customer. So we're on the support side. What do you suggest we do segmenting on our side if we don't have
sports?
Sorry?
You say you're on the sports side?
No, on the support side.
Oh, support.
So what do you suggest on our side as far as segmenting if we don't have full transparency or access to the revenue side or perhaps a potential point when the customer churns, that kind of data? Like what are we looking at that could roll upwards in the opposite direction?
Yes, I mean, I'll start, and I'd love to hear from Tien too. I think there's how you segment your customers, which could be based on revenue or potential revenue or consumer demographic. There are a lot of different ways to do it, but assuming somebody does that in your company, I think then there's how you act on it in support. And I think there's probably two different dimensions there. Like there's customers opting in to a better package. Like if it's a B2B, then buy premier support or whatever, right? Which I think on its own is valuable to segment. And then there's you handling a customer with different levels of severity based on, or priority based on kind of where they are in the segmentation. I don't think you want every agent making micro decisions because that's not very smart, right? You don't want them to be like, okay, let's figure out which of these cases I work on today, right? That's definitely not a good idea. But I do think there's two things you can do. One is route really critical clients to a sub-team or group of people that either have the right experience or the right skill set so that they're going to provide the best possible service. So you can think about your routing with respect to client segmentation. The second thing is I think you can make every agent aware of where this client falls and kind of what's going on with that customer right now, just so that when they're on the phone, they seem like they understand this is a big customer, these guys matter a lot, and they don't treat them just like every other customer. Hopefully you treat every customer great, but that they're aware. So I'd say awareness and then some possible specialized routing are two things I've seen people do.
Yeah, so is the question, how do you segment? Is the question, how should the support organization think about?
Well, I think the challenge is not everything, not all the macro data regarding the customer base and the revenues is completely transparent to the support side in real time. It's looked at in different ways. And there's a certain way, on a holistic sense, you deal with customer experience that doesn't necessarily mesh with what's going on the revenue side, or you're not aware of at the time, right? So, and also because in support and service, it's a snapshot of the pain point. And it's very little on the positive side that usually comes inbound, right? So if I'm going to sure, there are practical ways to route and segment and get a sense for what's important, but let's talk about taking something anecdotal where you have a segment of the population that seems to want a phone contact, seems to want a channel, and you want to roll that data, you want to somehow find some symmetry. Is this maybe demographically or psychographically or sociologically or geographically, they prefer a different channel. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm hearing, I have sort of two reactions. If you look, there's certainly an art to running a support center, right? And we've got a fantastic leader in our department for that, and I can sort of see what she does. And I don't know, the Opentalk' guys are probably the experts at that. I'd say though a broader theme though is what's hard about these customer-centric businesses is that you're functionally structured in your organization, right? I mean, we did, in this offsite that we came up with all these things, we did a mental exercise for a while that says, what if we were not functionally structured? What if we were structured by account teams, right? And probably advertising agencies are an example of that, right? Yeah, you have a creative person, you have a media buyer, right? But no, you're on the Coke account, right? And what if we restructure the organization where the account team trumps the functional hierarchy? And the problem is that it makes it hard to scale an organization, right? So if you have an organization that only has a small set of customers and you go deep like an advertising agency, maybe that works. For a technology company, it doesn't quite work. The fact that you're in a support organization, chances are you're in a scale mode. And so how do you remain functionally structured, because that's where the scale efficiencies are, but wrap the organizations around the customer, right? So the left hand, you're integrated around what that customer experience is like. And so when you say we don't necessarily have information in the support department about our customers, you got to solve that problem, right? There's no reason why you shouldn't have all the information. Today, in today's world with LinkedIn, you can find anything about anybody, right? There's no reason why you should have all the information that you want, right? What the finance department knows, what the sales department knows, what the engineering department knows, what the usage levels is, what their profile is on LinkedIn. And there's no reason that you can't be, 100% coordinated with the salesperson on that account, right? With the marketing person on that account, if that even makes sense, with the customer success person on that account, and, aligned with engineering's understanding of what we do for that specific customer, right? Either as an individual or as a member of the segment, if you will. And that's where you break through, right? That's where you really break through and you achieve greater levels of customer success, customer intimacy. You're building a stronger business, right? And every department really has to do their part to elevate that conversation inside their companies.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Maybe midway point on the way back? And along those same lines, do you have any stories or times you can remember where you came up with your segmentation? You're like, okay, based on my data and questions I've asked the customer, this is the way that this customer is going to want to engage with my company. And then you get feedback from customer support team, your CSM, that's like, time out, this is not working. This is not what the customer wants.
Totally.
All right, so tell us about that and what you did.
Well, I think you did. So don't give up on the segmentation just because that happens. One of the things that happens in general in business is like you come up with some strategy or process and then one person finds an exception and they're like, yeah, we should throw out the whole strategy. And that's like completely wrong, right? There will be exceptions to any rule you come up with. I think what you need is special handling ability. And the most common example of this is some companies will do segmentation based on spend, right? They'll just be like, hey, look, customers that spend up to $100,000 are in this tier, and people that spend $100,000 to $1 million are in this tier or whatever. But then you find like GE buys $20,000 of stuff from you, and you're like, oh my God, I've heard of GE. They probably can spend $1 million eventually, and you need a way to elevate them. So I think one thing that's important as an organization is for people to have the permission to elevate, to say, hey, look, I think we should handle this one differently. Now, that doesn't mean you're throwing out the whole strategy, but you need to give people empowerment. It's very much like in customer support, where you give an agent empowerment to escalate, to improvise, to do credits, whatever you need to do. I think you need to give people power to work outside the system.
That's neat. We heard a story earlier about a delivery agent for an Instacart-like service that I can't remember the name because I'm proud to say I'm too young for that one. But the agent or the delivery person was super empowered to say, "Hey, I've refunded your ice cream.
Yeah.
It might melt, it might not, but I want you to let me know." So they're saying, "I'm empowered. I care." It's such an impactful experience that the customer has, and they always remember it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, are there any special stories about empowered agents or the way that you think about empowering your own team to go above and beyond?
Well, so you have to segment. There's no doubt, right? But the nirvana is not segmentation, right? The nirvana is look, as a customer interacting with some service that I use, right? There's probably a set of things that it's like, okay, well, they should know about these aspects of me and incorporate that in how they interact with me, right? And it's a finite list. It's not like 100 things, right? But it's probably about like 10, 12 things, right? It's how long I've been a customer and so on and so forth. And so the point is not to overly segment. The point is to surface these 8 to 10 things that are important. Train your organization, right, in a consistent way. Whether you're the support agent, you're the person in finance doing collections, you're the salesperson making a sales call, you're a product manager trying to collect some customer feedback, right, for the roadmap. To take those things into account, right, and then weave that into how you engage with the customer. Now, you still need a segment from an organizational structure standpoint, right? At the end of the day, you're in the sales organization. Who owns it? And if you want to start breaking down the functional silos, you start building these units. Okay, you guys are the enterprise team, and I want sales, marketing, customer support, customer service all aligned to that, right? So they can learn about things that they need to do that are special in their group, right? And so we do segment in that way. But if you push it all the way to customer interaction, don't make it too simple, right? Say, here are the 10 dimensions that really happen. We're going to make sure we push the information to you, right? And here's the guidelines that we trained you, and from there on, obviously use your judgment.
I like that idea of having guiding principles for different team members. And yeah, of course, there are nuances, and you'll treat different customers in different ways based on a few different things. But as a company, here's how we position ourselves. This is our mantra. This is so yeah. Actually, that's an interesting. I'd like to hear your point on this. If your company had to have a mantra of how you think about your customers, what would that be?
We have a single vision, which is we want to create the world subscribed. We have and everybody in the company knows that. We have a single mission. It doesn't matter if you're the support agent, the receptionist, the engineer, right? We have to focus on helping companies be successful in the subscription economy. We have a framework for how we do that. There's 9 things that we do for the customer, and we can measure it, right? We can sit down and we can do workshops around it. We could do health scores around it, right? Our SEs, before they engage with a prospect that says, these are the 9 things that we're going to do for you. Here's how we're going to analyze your business, right? So we translate everything back to those things. We even take it to the point where when we have a release, how many features were against this key, how many features were against that key, right? So this gives us a common language for what we do for customers that are universal and are universally adopted by the entire organization. That's what allows us to transcend our functional departments, which are still needed, but have a common language and a common conversation with the customer.
That is impressive. I'm having another moment where I'm feeling like we really have a lot of work to do. I think having one mantra that is dispersed and truly adopted throughout the company that guides your interactions with customers is very impressive. The fact that you have 9 is, I don't know what to do with that team.
So our win notice.
That's crazy. That's
our
wonderful.
win notice, the SEs say these are the 9 things we're supposed to do for the customer.
Yeah.
And then our services organization takes over, we bring them live. Our go live notice says these are the 9 things that we did. And you can actually compare what the sales organization said we should be doing for our customers with what the implementation team actually did. And then the CSM organization afterwards on a monthly, quarterly basis can go back and say, well, how are we doing against these things? And let's drill into these 2 things, which seem really important in your business today, and let's try to amplify our value against these 2 things.
I think I'd be intimidated to be an unhappy customer at Zuora. I wouldn't want to go against all 9. How about you, Nick, at Gainsight?
Yeah, in terms of, I think the question is kind of the slogan.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Slogans are so cheesy. I don't know, make customers great again or something like that. But I think that if you had
Or a mantra.
Yeah,
Mantra's a little less cheesy.
Values, for us, really do matter. As a company, we really live by these 3 company values, and one of them is what we call success for all. And the basic idea is, a lot of companies say we need to care about our customers because that will drive shareholder value. We need to care about our customers because they will spend more money with us. We need to care about our customers because they will be happier and tell their friends. And our success for all at Gainsight's the idea that we, for its own end, care about driving customer success, employee success, success for our employees' families, success for the community, and success for investors. And none of those are subservient to any others. So it's just how our company runs. But basically what that means is if you believe this will drive customer success, you don't have to justify it with anything else. Now, we can't have the company not eventually make money and things like that, right? So we have to do the investor success too. But that gives people a lot of permission to not come up with false arguments for why we do these 15 different things and that leads to us making more money. You actually can just be creative and say, hey, this matters to our customers, we need to do it. So I think that idea of like figuring out why you care about all this stuff and why you're here. And for some companies, it's totally fine to be completely capitalistic and it's about profit and that's fine too. But I think a lot of companies, it's a little bit of a mixed message to employees. We care about customers, but we really care about shareholder results, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you really care about? And for me, as long as I'll be CEO of Gainsight, it's success for all, and I won't be happy if we don't do all of them, right? So at the end of the day, that's the way we measure ourselves. It's not that we measure it all based on one bottom line metric. So that's something I think it's not for every company, but for us it works pretty well. So.
The beauty of this new business model is you can see the alignment.
That's right.
Right? When you sold a product, the business model is not necessarily aligned to customers. It's aligned to how many products you ship. Right? But if you look at the war going on right now between Amazon and Google and Facebook, it's all got to do with, what's my Amazon ID worth, right? Amazon versus Apple, right? And how many Amazon IDs do I have? How many Apple's IDs do I have? And how am I monetizing that? This really comes out, with Netflix. Netflix is spending $6 billion on original programming this year, right? It's an astonishing number. And you look at HBO, you look at all the other content creators, they're saying, I don't understand how they can do this. Right? It doesn't make any sense. But then you look at their income statement. Their income statement is $7 billion, right? It's basically, think about it, they have 70 million subscribers, giving them basically $100 a year. So it's $7 billion. If you look in their cost structure outside of original programming, is only $1 billion, right? So they have $6 billion of free cash flow from their existing customer base that they're just going to plow back into original programming, one, to hold on to their customers, right, so their content doesn't get scale, but also to acquire more customers. And so when you have a loyal customer base and you've done the energy to make them happy, to have those high NPS scores, and you've got the stable revenue base, right, to kind of fuel off of, you've got a much, much more sounder business model to kind of drive your growth. And that's where the true synergy is, right? So Salesforce used to say, okay, it's a win-win model, and people are like, okay, yeah. But you really see it come out when these successful subscription business models are truly able to scale because they've really nailed what it means to have customer success.
That's great. That's great. All right, well, Tien, Nick, thanks so much for coming out and sharing the wealth of knowledge that you've got around this topic. Really appreciate it.
We're not talking about the Beyonce concert? Is that off limit?
Oh, how many times are you going to brag about that? All right, Nick went to a Beyonce concert.
Exactly, yeah.
The tough life of the CEO. Yes, we hear enough of it.
That's cool.
That's great. Thanks so much for coming out. Hope you stick around.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Good job. Well done.